So, when you're making a PNG tuber asset, you have a lot of options. You can literally just have, like, a stationary and a, like, talking or smiling face, but I like to go a little bit more advanced. We don't have time to read the B-movie script in an educational video, but, so this is, there's two versions of the rig that I have, because I make it in a Clip Studio, but this is the uncompressed version right here. So the uncompressed version has a bunch of different layers, and it's like, this is all the blending layers. So I could go in here, let's see here, which layer are you? See, I can turn off the shading on the arm, and I can turn off the shading on the shirt. So this is all of the pieces without being mushed together. And the reason why we do this is something called a non-destructive workflow. A non-destructive workflow is really helpful because if something goes wrong, you can easily undo it. You don't have to worry about taking things apart. I don't use this particular model version when actually making the poses because it's very complicated and I need to move the pieces around. So when push comes to shove and I'm about to import it into VTuber, I have a compressed version. And the compressed version is one where I have all the separate pieces, which you can see there's a little smiley face there. But each of these pieces are their own separate, like, little layer, but they are much simpler. Like, we got an angry eyes. Also, hello, Wild, welcome to the stream. We're doing a little demo for the YouTube audience. And obviously there are some minor blending mode things here, like we've got some overlay layers and some shadows, so these are just like things to help with the composition and keep, because the mouth is the most complicated portion of the face. As you can see, it's a little less detailed compared to the hair, and that's because there's more pieces going on. So in order to blend it properly, what you have to do is you have to stick the different pieces into a folder and then paint on top of that folder. So we'll kind of go through, obviously you guys can't see, but I will turn myself off just for a second along with the chat, just so that for posterity's sake. So as you can see, we've got a bunch of layers, but they're all individual layers. So the only reason why we have, so let's see here, this is the eyes. The reason why the eyes have a lot of clipping masks is because that is how the pupils are hidden. So let's see if we, and obviously there's some stuff that's not used, but if we, for instance, take this and we remove the clipping mask, you'll see how the eyes go through the bottom of the eye. But generally speaking, when you're doing this kind of thing, everyone has their own preferences on building PNG tubers. There's also multiple programs when it comes to it. But I think it comes down to a combination of what do you want your character to do. Like, as you can see, Miguel's got different facial expressions. He's got an open smile, which that's why we have the shadows on top of it. Those are the painted shadows. So if I go back up here, and I change that, it's just a flat image that way. But then I can turn on the smile shadows. And I can also have the tilted head. I have it this way as a separate folder so that it's got consistency, but if you really take it apart, we'll kind of turn on all of these pieces here. And this is how they actually work. Human characters are a little bit easier to make a rig compared to animal characters because animals have dimension to them, as you can see. And then if we go, there's a bunch of different eyebrows, different eyebrow shapes. And the thing is, you don't have to worry about everything being filled in if people aren't going to see it. Like, you can't see that fill issue in my eyebrow if it's not going to be visible because it's underneath the bang. But it's one thing, if you want to have like a head tilt, you want to make the head a separate piece. You want to make sure the hair pieces are separate. Snoutless Miguel will haunt me. Yeah, I have no mouth and I must scream. But luckily for you guys, you don't have to see this in the day-to-day thing. This is just a little thing if you ever want to make a PNG tuber. There are some benefits and drawbacks to having a PNG tuber versus having a full-on VTuber rig. VTuber rigs can a little bit more accurately express themselves compared to a PNG tuber. You aren't locked into the number of expressions that you make, but at the same time, you also have to worry about camera lighting and framing and making sure that you aren't sitting weird in context to your webcam. But the cool thing about this is that I have a bunch of different pieces and poses, so I can go into the default pose, I can go into a scared pose, I can go into a more serious pose with this, and I can obviously toggle into the classic PNG tuber that I had. But that's generally how you make it. I usually start with a sketch at the start of it, and then work off of that, so it's almost like building an animation puppet, but you can get a little bit more detailed with what you have because you're not having to worry about like tweening into stuff as much. It's just still images. So you guys have any questions on how this works? I know I probably didn't explain it too well, but it's a really subjective process whenever you're making a PNG tuber asset, because you really have to think about what's going into the pieces. Like, for instance, if we come over to the eye, where's my eyepiece? That is the mouth overlay. Where is my eye layer? Oh, also a blink layer. So if you really kind of pull it apart, I might see about like, maybe I can release an older version of Miguel's rig to the Patreon? Like a version where it's not like up to date, but you guys can still kind of see, like pull it apart and really see what pieces go into it, you know? Because I know this is very, very complicated when you kind of look at it at a glance, but like, for instance, I can pull his arms off. That's his arm right there. And he's got an entirely separate arm. Let's see here, where are my mouths? Let's turn you off for a second. Turn off the mouths and the head. As you can see, the hair is also its own separate layer, but I have a different arm for when I'm drawing at the tablet and sitting still. People tell me to stop chopping limbs off on stream. Well, joke's on you, my limbs are just reattached. But, turn off the rear hair in the body. So this, for instance, this is the arm that you can see as it pops up above the tablet. This is the arm right here that, when I'm not talking, so if I just go silent for a second, you see how the hand's popping up but the shoulder's slightly different? But when I go into the basic pose, you'll notice how the shoulder's different. So you can see how it kind of, the shading stops right there beneath the shoulder. Crazed streamer dismembers a werewolf live in front of viewers. I mean, that is kind of part of the werewolf process. Also, hello Spring, we're taking a look at the PNG tuber rig. But that is how I build
Your health is low. Do you have any potions or food?
I do, in fact, have a drinky. Drinking very important when you're a hard-working artist. Stay hydrated. But that is how I build my PNG tubers. And hopefully that will help you guys too.